All right, we are live, and I am out over the moon to be joined by UFC former lightweight and current UFC commentator Paul, the Irish Dragon Felder. Paul, the last time we spoke was in my little penthouse down in
Yeah,
UFC London, but it's good to catch up. How are things, my man?
things are good, man. Thanks for having me on and reaching out. It's been a little bit, and yeah, things are good. Just making sure my 10-year-old and 3-year-old aren't killing each other. I'm watching their monitor. They're in their rooms playing. They're doing well right now. It will explode soon, but as long as they're on their behavior right now. Wife's getting her hair done. I just had hip replacement surgery 3 weeks ago, so I haven't been working obviously for a little while, and then we had this nice break going into December and January towards the end of the year. So it was the perfect time to get it done. I've been putting it off for years now. So got that full right hip replacement, already back on the bike, already lifting, already walking with no real limp or anything like that. No cane, no walker. Definitely ahead of schedule, but I can't wait to get back on the road. Between us, my wife's not here, but I'm ready to start working in a couple months. That's for sure.
I would imagine as a professional athlete, as a guy who's, built a career, built a life around training, about putting your body through hardship. Has that been one of the most typical challenges to kind of have to press pause on any form of training?
Yeah, but it was. But I think I did a good job. Now that I'm older, right? I'm 41, still young enough to be really active and really fit, but also smart enough, having learned a lot of lessons from my career and things I did wrong as a fighter, knowing that if I go way too hard, I'll stunt my growth. I'll mess up the rehabilitation. I haven't drank in over a month. I'm trying to give it up completely, to be honest with you. I'm trying to really, now that I'm getting to my middle age, I've got 3 kids. I'm trying to find ways to really enjoy myself without boozing. And I'm a guy who I love to have a beer. I love to
Yeah.
have drinks. But knowing that this big moment where I'm literally seeing my body start to really kind of give out on me as we start to get over 40 years old and getting this big surgery, it's been hard, but I've been more dialed in with routines and doing the same thing. I wake up every morning. I take a protein shake with creatine. I eat a little fruit. I start my workouts. I go walk the dogs. I do this. We get the kids to school. Same thing at night. So having eliminated that for at least a month now and really focusing on, okay, I do the PT at least once a day. I walk once a day. Now I'm allowed to get back on the bike. I'm lifting upper body. I feel like I'm very structured right now. And I'm kind of really curious to see how I can carry that over into commentary as well. Being on the road, it's a slippery slope to get caught up in. We're going out to dinners, we're doing this. Now I just want to get more structured. So it's been really difficult because I love to effing work out, man. I
Yeah.
do. Whether I have a fight, no fight, it doesn't matter. I've always been the guy that really enjoys that process. I love pushing myself. I love seeing what limits I can push, and having the hip is just a new way. So I think I've been able to spin it to how quickly and safely can I get back from this. And 3 weeks literally from Wednesday, and I've already done 2 45-minute bike rides on my indoor trainer and lifting weights, in good shape. Haven't gained any weight. As a matter of fact, I lost a couple pounds since having the hip surgery. That was a big concern of mine too, was, oh boy, Fat
Yeah.
Paul's going to come back. Fat Felder's coming back. But no, we've kept him at bay for the time being.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, in all seriousness, great to hear that recovery's gone as well as it
Yeah.
has. On a side note, and this isn't related to the fact that we were scheduled to chat today. Do you know what I did this morning or early this afternoon?
What?
I watched, for some strange reason, I watched your fight back with Charles Oliveira, UFC
Ha!
218. I don't know why. I had a spare 10 to 15 minutes, and maybe because we were speaking a few hours later, maybe that's a little bit of a lie, but I watched your fight back and seeing not only how different you look, how different Charles looks. Charles's frame is
Yeah.
nowhere near as big, and the adversity that you had to overcome in that
Yeah.
first round and get him out of there late into the second.
Bro, he had me gurgling so bad. And I made so many mistakes early on in that fight, especially considering how much jiu-jitsu I trained for that fight, knowing I was facing Charles. I felt really good on the ground. Obviously I was very strong going into that fight, and it shows just in my physique in that particular match. But when he locked in that Darce, I tried to grab his leg, and work my way out. And really, ultimately, what I did was give him the lever that he needed so that he could like crunch me in and take away all the space. And then I panicked, got my leg out of there. And that's when I was able to kind of arch my elbow and start to get some space and tire him out. But I was probably about 15 seconds away at one point from going to sleep in there. And the things that go through your head in those moments, I remember thinking, I'm done. And then that little voice comes back, the positive one. And I was able to fight out of it. But yeah, that win is definitely the win that aged the absolute best for me in my entire career. That guy has gone on to become not only a champion, but just a straight up legend of the game.
Because that fight did two things. That fight, first and foremost, pushed the initial narrative that Charles is a quitter, that Charles doesn't have that dog in him. And then secondly, to your point, that I know there's a lot of rumors that once Charles had his first child, he kind of had different motivation. But that started the legendary win streak that Charles went on to win and defend the title and become the #1 lightweight. That was a catalyst for a lot of movement. And obviously, let's be honest, probably the biggest name on your resume when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, Charles is definitely at the top of that. Edson being up there as a legend of the game, but obviously where he has gone and how he's looked recently versus what Charles is still doing and the performances that he's still putting on, by far. And I used to cheer him on, and still do, honestly. Anytime I've beaten a guy in my career, I want them to go do as best as they possibly can in their careers, because then it just only makes you look better, right? Especially for somebody like him who goes on and gets the belt after you've beaten him. It's like, I beat that guy. Guy. Now, granted, I know he was a different human being when I fought him versus the Charles that we saw beating Gaethje, beating Poirier, beating all these guys. But we had a conversation a couple times through translators and stuff on when he was on that massive win streak. And he said after that fight is when he really invested in strength and conditioning. He felt so much smaller, so much just weaker in there because he was still battling between 145 and 155. And I think after that loss is when he really just put his head down and was like, okay, I've got to get bigger. I've got to get stronger to be able to hang with these guys at lightweight, and then went on a just crazy tear.
Talking about lightweight, UFC 324, the interim lightweight title is booked between Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett. Are you going to be in Vegas for that one?
No, I don't think I'm there for that one. I'll be doing Charles and Max. I'll be doing that one. I've got a full schedule though. I've been off for a long time, but once I start up in February, I'm in the Apex, then I'm in Texas. I'm in London again, coming up. I'm all over the place. Some of the places haven't been determined, just says international or US based one. So I don't know where they're all at, but I'm basically 2 or 3 events a month all the way until July as of right now that I know of. And got another 5-year deal.
Excellent.
That starts this year. So they're bringing me back. I'll be with the Paramount switch and everything. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot more of me. I just had this break because of the hip, and I'm getting cabin fever in here. But I'm excited for that one. I know there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of craziness, but there's nothing you can do because obviously we see what's going on with Topuria and the battles that he's having with custody and all that. And we won't even get into the nitty gritty of what potentially is going on there. But here we are. I mean, one of your own is getting the shot, even though it's the interim. We don't know when Ilya might be coming back. He might end up putting that belt back up on the line if he can't get back in there soon.
The people of Liverpool will proclaim Paddy Pimblett as the world
champion.
Don't care.
Whether
that's an interim or a full title. Believe me, Paul. We've talked about the similarities between Philly and Liverpool the last time we spoke, and it's it's somewhere that we'll be very proud if one of their own can get that belt. How do you see that fight playing out? Could you maybe give me a key to victory that either man needs to implement to have success?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Gaethje, I think, just came out and said how much, and I don't know if he's messing around, but he talked about how much jiu-jitsu he's been training, and maybe I'll sub him and things like that. I think that's partially head games and things like that he's playing with Paddy. I think Paddy obviously needs to do what he does really well, which is fights out long, right? He uses those kicks up the middle. He's got a good knee that we saw him land against Chandler, and then almost kind of land your points and force Gaethje to try to close the distance. And that's when I would try to wrestle. And ultimately, even if Gaethje is trying to be defensively sound and he can get a hold of him, that's where he does really well. And I just think being the younger guy, he looks huge to me in a good way nowadays, Paddy. I'm always impressed. It seems like he's getting fitter and fitter, further and further out from these fights as well. We only see Fat Paddy for a little bit, and then he seems to dial it in much faster. We were just in, where was he, in Doha when I saw him? And, he looked in great shape even then. And Gaethje, I think keeping it on the feet, boxing in close, and just trying to murder the legs like he always does is something that he needs to do. I don't know if testing Paddy's jiu-jitsu is the move for Gaethje, even if that's what he said in some tweet or some podcast or some interview somewhere. So it'll be interesting, man. But I think Paddy's got a goddamn good chance. He's the younger guy.
Yeah, I was in the gym yesterday with Paddy because Carlos Prates was in town doing around the seminars. I don't know if you've seen
the cigarette.
But there was a moment where Carlos and Paddy were stood next to each other, and Carlos is a big welterweight. Don't forget, 6'2", 6'3", that tall, lanky frame. And Paddy didn't look that far away from him, like in terms of depth, in terms of like width of his body. So it's amazing to think as well that when Paddy started, he was a featherweight. He was Cage Warriors featherweight champion, and now he's like on the bigger side of lightweight. It's a pretty crazy transition.
Yeah, and you see that. You see guys when they're so young, when they first really get into the game. I mean, how old was Paddy when he really started first fighting professionally? Because he's still, how old is he now? Still in his 20s?
He's just turned 30.
I
think he was about 20, 21 when he turned pro.
Right. Your body from early 20s to when you finally start turning 29, 30, 31. I think once you hit 30 to like 33, 34 is your absolute prime. That's when I was at my best. That's when a lot of guys you see are at their best, because at that point you've matured, you've had a lot of experience, and just physically your muscle density starts to really settle in. You put on size, you start to really get that man strength, and not just having that, I'm fit because I'm 20 something years old and full of testosterone. Then it all kind of balances out and you get that sweet spot. So he's right at the prime of his career and getting an opportunity to fight a legend like Gaethje and for the interim belt. So there's a lot of cards stacked for him in this one. And yeah, I think he's only going to be even better every time we see him. And I know he hasn't really had the competition necessarily, and people are going to say the same thing about this. Me and Bisping talked about it on the podcast too, where he keeps getting put in these situations where now everybody, even though Gaethje's a murderer and a legend and bonuses in every single performance he's ever had, people are going to be like, oh, well, he's 37. So poor Paddy, this is another huge challenge and another big step up, but he already knows it. People are going to be talking shit if he wins. So he's just got to do his thing. And Gaethje is a dog. He gets one more opportunity here, and he knows it, to really try to get to that undisputed championship belt. And he's got to go through Paddy first. And I love the fight. I figured it was going to be Paddy and Ilya, but with Ilya stepping out, I think this kind of worked out best for both guys, where Gaethje gets what he wanted. He wanted to fight for a belt. He didn't want to fight anybody else. He didn't really care who it was. If it's Ilya, great. But now that there's a belt on the line and Paddy's on the other side, he really doesn't seem to give a shit, and that's great to see.
Yeah, 100%. I like to ask fighters who are either at or formerly at the top of a division, which you of course were, and we're discussing the lightweight division. This ties in nice to the commentary side of things. It might affect your answer, it might not. Which UFC lightweight has impressed you most in 2025? Who in your mind has had a particularly standout year?
Well, I mean, if we're counting who is actually the champion, I think even though he only had one fight at lightweight, Ilia Topuria is the king right now. But Paddy is for sure up there with a guy who has made a lot of noise. Arman, even though he's missed an opportunity, he is a guy that I think will be fighting for that belt. And I think that he's getting kind of shat on a little bit right now, and kind of justifiably so, because I know everyone's like, well, he made weight for the backup fight. He proved that he can do it. Why isn't he getting a shot at the belt? Listen, you get an opportunity like that. And I think what's not being said is it seems like there was more to it than just a back injury, right? I think there was something going on that kind of peeved the UFC off, and they're making him wait a little bit longer for it. But I mean, Paddy Ilia Topuria, Arman Sarukian. These are guys that really stand out as the guys that are going to be able to challenge for that belt. I think Paddy and Ilia. And who else am I missing? There's somebody else that I'm forgetting about. I don't know, Mike. Who's impressed you at lightweight?
I'll give you one, given the fact that we were both in the arena. But Benoit Saint-Denis had a very big year when you consider I know you were at Paris in 2024 when Renato Moicano got him out of there in a couple of rounds, and to be in the position that he was and have a lot of people write him off, and then have a so performance again against the short notice replacement in Kyle Propolek, and then come back with that Hoofy TKO, and then followed up by the Dariush knockout. He's had a very big year. And put himself back in a great position, I would say.
And Fares Ziem is another one who I think is just on his way to start making some big noise in the lightweight division too. So two Frenchmen that are impressing in that division right now. So
for anybody who's watching this stream, by the way, Paul, sorry to interrupt. For anybody who's watching this stream or is going to watch this interview back and who hasn't been to an UFC event in Paris, can you just illustrate what that is like? Because I've had the pleasure twice, and it's akin to a English soccer match in terms of it feels like the arena's about to explode. It's absolutely incredible.
They're singing, they're chanting, they're stomping the entire time. It's the loudest arena that I have ever been a part of. And I've been from fighting and or commentating all over the world, including multiple times in London, where early on when I was going there, that was definitely by far one of the greatest crowds. Scotland was a crazy crowd when I fought there. But just in terms of the entire night, nonstop, from pretty much the beginning of the first fight into the main event, it is by far the craziest, most enthusiastic, loud, and unified type of crowd that I've ever been a part of. When they start singing their chants and their soccer chants or their national anthems and all that, it is wild. And I've been there every time we've gone so far. And the first year it was like, it made sense. It's legalized in France. We're finally fighting in Paris, like all these French fighters in the car. We expected it to be wild for that one. But the fact that the next year we came back was just as crazy, if not even better. And then again, this past year, it followed up with a three-peat. So I'm pretty sure we'll be back. And it's definitely one of the best crowds I've ever experienced.
Talking about
a little bit of cigarette smoke smell in there, though. The French, they like their cigarettes. You smell people are sneaking smokes in there. Prates would like to fight there.
Yeah, Prates was front row cheering on Hoofy and Kaio, and I'm sure when the camera wasn't on him, he was probably lighting up
just smoking
a cigarette or two. But yeah. Last kind of topic before I let you go, because I'm conscious that you're still on dad duty. But we've got this real one-of-one. Okay. Has anybody started crying?
I haven't seen any fights yet, so
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, they're playing. They're good.
Do the kids know what dad used to do for a career?
It's tough. So Ruby, my 3-year-old, doesn't really have any ideas. We'll be watching it. She knows me more for when she's watching the fights with my wife, or they have them on the background and they see me doing interviews and stuff like that, and seeing me in a suit. They know me more for that now than they do as being a fighter. My 10-year-old was so young when I was really active that she doesn't really remember, even though I've got all these photos where I've got big, huge shiners or stitches all in my face. I've got a cast on my arm, and we're out to breakfast and stuff like that. And she just has no idea. And obviously we have a baby now who's a little over 4 months old. She will truly never understand what I had to go through. But whenever I'm mad and they're getting on my nerves a little bit as a dad, I remind them that, don't forget that any of the stuff that you see around is because dad had to get his ass beat and puncture his lungs and break his arm. And they just don't care. They don't get it. They don't get
I love it. Well, before I let you go, I have to talk about it because it's probably the biggest storyline in the sport at the moment. What do you anticipate the UFC White House card to look like? And I mean, in terms of the card, in terms of the production, because you're obviously an American, it's a slightly different perspective from me over here in the UK. What are you anticipating this to actually look like?
I every time I think I've got a handle on, okay, maybe this fight will happen, that, and then I see people going out on social media and like, oh, it's not, this fight's not happening. Pereira saying that he's not fighting on the White House. we already know that they were questioning and worried about putting John Jones on the White House card. Conor says he's back in training and wants nothing more than the fight on that White House card. So I really have no freaking clue. And I don't even know if they necessarily know quite yet. I think they're really waiting to see how things shape out. Ilya, can he be back by June and ready to go and defend the belt? Because obviously if Paddy and Gaethje are fighting in January, that gives them more than enough time for one of them to turn around and come back and be one of the main fights on that card. And I know that, Trump has come out and said that it's going to be just nothing but the best fights, all these title fights, all these types of all main event type fights, all on one card. But I think things have to really shake out and play out in between before we can really book it. You can't book June in December. It's tough to do.
100%.
I have no freaking clue, Mike, honestly. Like, I've not heard any rumors. I've not heard, and I've got some friends that are in the know that are head producers and stuff like that. I know they're going. I know they're visiting the White House. I know they're already scouting the lawn and where they're going to put things and how they're going to start operating. Production side is already heavily involved, but in terms of matchmaking, I really have no clue yet.
It feels very similar to UFC 300. If you remember, that main event was announced super late. And it feels like I was speaking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and I basically said that, I think it might have been Kayla, I think it was. And I was saying that in an ideal world, it would have been an American versus American grudge match. Think John Jones versus Daniel Cormier 2 on the White House lawn, a real celebration of American culture, if you will. But that's obviously not the fight. I can't envisage a fight.
No, because right now it just doesn't even stack up the way that the champions and challengers are even set up right now. It's so international. I mean, there's Americans in there, but it's so everywhere. I mean, we've got a mix of people from every part of the world right now, which is great too for the sport that it's that international. But it does take away from the White House card being kind of that, or, UK guys versus American guys. And it's the anniversary of the country and Declaration of Independence and all this. It's not even really. Originally, it was supposed to be aimed more towards July, and now it's going to be earlier in June. But I think now it's more focused on just getting the biggest, baddest, craziest fights to put on it, as opposed to kind of having a theme for it.
Was a Philly native want to fight on that card? Are people from Philly, patriotic, and would that be something that would be considered an honor?
Joe Pfeiffer, I think, would probably be a guy that would be really aiming to do that. I know he's a guy that would love that kind of a scenario to go fight at the White House. I'm pretty sure he's a pretty patriotic type guy. I know Sean Brady is still waiting. I'm sure he would want to fight again before June, but he would like to fight on a card like that. Especially it's close to home. Anybody in Philly, DC is much easier. I was just that's where I had my surgery, was in DC. So I was just there on Friday doing a follow-up. So it's easy for us to get to from Philadelphia. It's a couple hours. Obviously traffic is a nightmare to get there, but it's a lot easier than flying across the world.
What's your favorite American city other than Philly?
That's a good question. I really like San Diego area when I go out to California. I love Milwaukee. Obviously, I did a lot of training camps there. And I'm trying to think of where we've been recent. Denver's really cool. I like going to Denver as well. The altitude sucks, but I like Denver. And New York. I still love New York. I don't like going for long, but I used to want to be an actor for a really long time, went to school for it, and had spent a lot of time going back and forth for auditions and things like that in New York. And as I get older, I'm not as much of a city vibe kind of guy, but the young man still comes out in me when I go there and get to hang out. And I love to be able to walk the streets, go to different parts of the city. You're in a different city depending on what borough you go to in New York. So, I mean, you could be in Manhattan and then Brooklyn and all different. You get to kind of see all different walks of life in New York. So it's still one of my favorite cities to visit.
I know I said I'd let you go, and I will, but somebody in the chat has just commented, would Paul
you're good.
Felder
No,
come out of the
they're good. They're not feeling each other yet. So
Somebody's just asked, would Paul Felder come out of retirement to be on the White House card? That question might be, there might be an issue with that given the fact you've just had surgery for a hip replacement 4 weeks ago. But let's assume that hadn't happened. Would that be tempting for you?
No. It's funny, Mike. I think now that I'm in the place that I'm at mentally, I feel like the people that supported me want it more for me than I want it more for myself. I was talking to a couple of my best friends were hanging out with me the other day, and I was kind of saying that you get to a certain point where that edge is dulled. Like I don't have that same desire to just turn it up and kill somebody like I used to. I legit had that when I was active. I wanted to, you know what I mean? Like when I went in there, I could turn that switch and want to really hurt somebody and then turn it off and get out. I think that the girls in my life have softened me. There's too many of them in my house. I got 3 daughters and a wife and a female dog. So I've been dulled. The only thing I would ever even think about would be something where I don't have to kick. You know what I mean?
You could box shape pull.
I could buy. I'm glad what happened the other night. He finally fought a legit person and they were able to catch him. I think we all just needed the world to be set right for a little while from this influencer boxing stuff. Nothing against him. All credit to him. He got in there. And Tony Ferguson.
Shout out.
He's winning boxing fights, baby. He's on, dare we say it? He's back on a win streak. He amazes me, that guy. He's never going to retire. He better be careful.
Yeah, 100%. Paul, it is always a pleasure to catch up, my man. I know we've only done this twice, but it feels like a lot longer. So thank you for the time. Good to hear everything's gone well with surgery and rehab and all of that. Yeah. And hopefully I will see you in London in March.
I was going to say, hopefully I'll see you in London. I'll be there, man. So if not, maybe if we go to Paris, but I'm sure you can manage to get to London. Get your ass over there.
I'll be in London. Press passes approved. See you in March.
Yeah, see you in March, buddy.